Drive the Lane podcast, fresh off the NFL draft. Where did Buckeyes land? What's new with them? Who wasn't drafted but signed as an undrafted free agent? Hint, hint, wink, wink. We have one of them, Liam McCullough, is the guest today on our show. Before we get into all that, we're going to talk a little Michael Jordan, MJ, Last Dance, because if we're not talking about it, we're not a sports podcast. That's kind of the rules in this day and age in quarantine, that you have to talk about the Last Dance. But before all that, of course, Drive the Lane podcast, a part of the Lettermen Row Network, is presented by High Street Tees. All you're doing, we've talked about this before, all you're doing is sitting at home doing nothing. So why don't you do something and buy one of our shirts? And you could use our promo code DTL15 for 15% off your entire order. Get Drive the Lane shirts, get Crazy Mama's Pass and Brew, Buckeye Donuts, the library, you name it, they got it. High Street Tees, a toast to High Street past, present, and we like throwing in there the future because we are the future. Joey, how was that?
That was great. I will say, every time Zoldan does this, usually we're in person, and you guys aren't watching us, I try to either leave the room or go on my phone or something so I don't laugh, just because I don't know what it is. It's
because I nail it, and all you can do is sit there and laugh.
Yeah, I mean, they call him One Drake Zoltan, so
one take or one Drake?
One take, Zoltan. So, yeah, I just sat here and you just see me smiling because I'm just like, yeah, you guys can see me now. I can't just go on Twitter and look at We Rate Dogs, you know?
Exactly. So, as we said, we're going to kick things off with MJ, The Last Dance.
Oh, yeah.
By the time you're hearing this.
The real sports story of quarantine. Everyone's talking about the draft and football. Will there be college football? Will there be – who cares? Let's talk some hoops.
Let's talk some hoops. Let's talk about the documentary on the second greatest player ever and his last championship year with the Bulls.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't – there's no need to go into a LeBron versus MJ debate like every other place. All you need to know is that, look, if you want stats, look at LeBron. If you want rings – look at Russell.
Bill Russell.
If you want the mentality, look at Kobe. If you want dominance, look at Wilt. But if you want all of them combined, look at Michael Jordan. Okay? That's all you need to know.
All right, this has been our talk on The Last Dance. So, no, Joey, what are some thoughts? What are some thoughts from watching it so far? Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. No, I think it was – I'll tell you this. It was really, really cool, obviously, because I'm a huge Bulls fan. Obviously, Michael Jordan is my basketball god growing up in Chicago. And it was even cooler because not only am I a huge Bulls fan, but I'm watching it with my family, my parents who lived it, my dad who obviously grew up a huge Chicago sports fan and a Michael Jordan fan and was, watching every one of those games in his apartment with his friends, and my mom who had just moved to Chicago and now she's all she knows is Bulls basketball and stuff and then also Andre who basically is my brother who's always over even in quarantine times. He lives near us, so he goes to the grocery and he goes.
We might have to cut that out.
Yeah, well, it's okay. And he is a little younger than my parents. So he gives the even cooler view of, my dad, he's like Michael Jordan's age-ish. But Andre is younger, and he grew up, imitating him, as he grew up and stuff. So it was really cool to watch it with those guys because they're just, reliving their childhood or reliving their glory years or whatever you want to call it. So that was really, really cool. I will say, controversial take, they did say that the first two episodes were the worst. I was a little underwhelmed in terms of this. It was a little hard to follow if you didn't know everything there was to know about the Bulls. They went, to the championship parade, and then they went back to him in college, and then they went back to him in high school. And then they talked to his parents. Then they talked to Scottie Pippen. Then they went back to his rookie year. Then they went to his third year. Then they went to his broken foot.
Yeah, they were jumping around a lot.
To Italy. Then they went to their trip to France. And I was just me, the all knowledgeable Bulls fan, even my dad was confused. He was like, "I live this, and I don't know what part they're talking about." There's like, is this that's the only criticism I have. It was amazing, like amazing. I was glued to the TV the entire time, but that's my critique of it. It was a little hard to follow at times. Like if I was, if I didn't know, if I was just a casual golf fan that was like, I need sports, like I'm gonna watch this MJ documentary, I'd be a little confused. Not saying that it wasn't well done. I mean, it was incredible, but that's all I'm saying.
I agree. I think we make more doing this podcast than Scottie Pippen was making going into that last season. I got to say, that was a little blown out of proportion, I thought, too.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get into it. I mean, the dude made more money in his career than MJ did, playing-wise, contract-wise. Like, overall, he's fine. So, I mean, I thought it was funny when his wife, or I don't even know, are they still together? Whatever.
Yeah.
Larsa Pippen was like, he's doing just fine. It's like, says you who cheated on him with Future. Like, okay, buddy.
But if you're going to pick anyone to cheat with, Future's pretty cool.
Sure.
How much do you think the song Mask Off is going to get played when quarantine ends?
Oh, my God. When quarantine ends, but even when quarantine ends, we'll still have to wear a mask. But you're right, it will get played more because when we come back home after we have been wearing our mask all day, everyone will be like,
yeah. So there was this bar at Mizzou that opened my sophomore year called My House. And still to this day, every time you're there, you'll hear, "Welcome to my house." So it'll be like that when everyone's taking their masks off.
Where do you guys want to meet up? Well, you guys can just come to my house.
It's very confusing. Trust me.
It's confusing,
but we've heard all the jokes, and I've made all the jokes.
How about the fact that the Ohio State bar is named the library? Oh, your mom and dad are calling? Where are you? Hey, Joe, what are you doing? It's so late. What are you answering the phone for? Oh, I'm just on my way to the library.
So my house has three. My house has 3 areas, and this is so random. But my house has 3 areas.
The living room, the dining room.
They have the main room, okay, the backyard, which is outside, and the attic, which is upstairs. And I think it was the middle of my senior year. Someone was like, it's called the attic because it's supposed to be like a house, and we all were like, oh my God, no way. We didn't realize it. We just thought it was upstairs, so it's an attic, but we didn't make the connection
What about the backyard? You didn't make the connection for the backyard?
We were just like, it's out back. It's a backyard.
Talk about a Mizzou education. Oh, man.
Oh, easy.
Sorry.
Easy.
Mizzou, speaking of Mizzou, they had a player drafted last night, didn't they? One, maybe two?
We had 2 players drafted. Albert Ukawebunam is reunited with Drew Lock in Denver, and Jordan Elliott is heading to Cleveland with my Cleveland Browns. Are we ready to jump into the draft? Because I got some stats for you if we're ready to jump into the draft.
Yeah, well, that was a good segue. The last thing I'll say about the MJ documentary is we're recording this before the Rodman episode. So we'll have our thoughts on the Rodman episode at some point. But it's going to be – it's just the lead-in for it, the teaser is incredible. I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see the dude marry himself. I mean – he's nuts. It'll be fun.
So I got all the Last Dance episodes sent to me on a Google Drive. I'm sure you got it sent too. I could not have deleted something faster.
Oh, yeah. No. I retweeted something about it. Dan Poneman, who we'll probably have on at some point, a sports agent. Jay Sean Tate's agent. He tweeted yes, we're all getting sent this documentary, and I could not be less excited about getting it because the coolest thing about it is watching it with everyone.
Yeah, so, I'm not. I refuse to watch it.
It's to me, it's my parents love being in the middle of a sports game and then pausing it and eating dinner. No.
Yeah.
Well, I like to watch it with everyone, so I can be on Twitter. Anyway, we can talk
all right. Let's talk some draft. So I got some stats for you. It's not really stats. It's just we should probably recap because if you're like us, by the end of the draft, you weren't really following. I was
following.
Right. I was tuned in all of day 1, all of day 2, and a lot of day 3. But I was not tuned in when KJ Hill got drafted, so that was a Twitter update for me. I'm going to run through it real quick. So former Buckeye Joe Burrow, first overall pick. All right. He'll be joining the Bengals. Chase Young, second pick. Former Buckeye. I'm not going to say former Buckeye after all of them. From now on, we'll only be discussing players that were 100% Buckeyes. All right, number 2, Chase Young, Redskins. Number 3, I forgot, I went 1, 2, 3. Number 3, Okudah, cornerback, Detroit Lions, former Buckeye. And then 19, this is kind of a stretch, and I know we don't bet, but one of the bets I would have taken if we did bet that I did take was that there would be 3 Buckeyes drafted in the first round, and I thought it was going to be J.K. Dobbins, Chiefs pick 32 buzzer beater. But oh no, it was a Damon Arnette.
Thank God you didn't bet on J.K. Dobbins because he got picked in, the 5th round or something?
Yeah, I definitely didn't bet on him. Damon Arnette, 19th to the Raiders. Kind of a shocker. I thought he could go first round, but not that high. And then we waited and waited and waited, and J.K. chip on his shoulder Dobbins went 55th, mid-end of the second round to the Ravens. And all I can think is that he's going to kill the Browns twice a year. And I know it's going to happen, and it's going to piss me off. And I'm just thankful that we didn't need a running back and we, passed on him. At least it's just that's where he ended up. He's going to kill us.
It would have been crazy if the Browns, what you're saying, but also, if they would have picked a Michigan wide receiver instead of the most productive wide receiver in Ohio State history. That would be crazy.
Oh, I got thoughts on that. All right, we'll get to that. Devon Hamilton, Jaguars, 73rd overall pick.
Shout out Andrew Dockich. That's his favorite player ever.
Really?
Yeah, we were sitting, our seats are really good, and we're right behind the bench. And we're sitting at a game my junior year. And he was like, Joe, look at how big number 53 is. That's my guy. And then slowly but surely he turns into one of the best defensive linemen in the country. It was so that's shout out Doc. That's his favorite guy.
Jonah Jackson, offensive line, Lions. Number 75. Number 98, pick number 98, Malik Harrison, linebacker, Ravens. My brother was pissed. My brother really wanted the Browns to take him, and they took Jordan Elliott instead. All right, and then we waited 100 picks to number 199 for Jordan Fuller in the 6th round. He went to the Rams. And then pick number 220, KJ Hill, Chargers. That's the one that everyone said the Browns should have taken. They took Donovan's, Peoples, Jones's, and I got to say, if Donovan's, Peoples, Jones's had, if DPJ had JT Barrett, Haskins, Justin Fields, he would have been a second round pick.
Well, yeah, that's a point someone made on Twitter. I saw that someone.
Even Urban said that. Urban was he's a top 15 player in this draft.
He was debated. He was down to Ohio State and Michigan in high school. But, so he was the 12th player overall or something crazy. And Shea Patterson was the 4th player overall. And they both went to Michigan, and one went undrafted and one
didn't Shea Patterson start at Ole Miss?
Yeah. And then he went to Michigan where he played the most. Yeah, it just shows you how well they're developing people over it.
Yeah, I like the Donovan's, Peoples, Jones's pick because I don't mind it. I think he has KJ Hill.
The last Michigan guy you guys drafted, he turned out pretty well.
Yeah, he turned into Odell, so it turned out pretty well. 7th round, also pick number 235, Jayshon Cornell,
who I had math class with.
He's lucky he squeezed that one in. And then a bunch of guys, including today's guest, Liam McCullough, were picked up as undrafted free agents. Something I'm going to bring up with Liam that you guys will hear, an interesting stat. Only 7 long snappers in the history of the draft have ever been drafted, and one of them was this year, but it was not Liam.
When did that guy get drafted? Oh, that's kind of a bummer.
I know. I don't know if I'm going to say that to him.
Yeah, maybe not.
But I'm going to say that 7. I'm going to say that 7 people stat, but then I won't say one of them is this year.
Or you could say, guess how? Do you know how many long snappers have been?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But from hearing that list, who do you think? When you see that list, who do you think is going to make the biggest impact immediately for their team?
Joe Burrow or Chase Young?
Yeah, I agree.
That's pretty obvious. If we're looking for a stretch, I think offensive linemen, we don't know what kind of impact they're making. Cornerback, we don't really know what kind of impact they're making, But I think a guy like KJ Hill, why can't he fit in right away? I think that they have some studs and in Los Angeles, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and dudes on the outside, and Keenan Allen works in the middle and stuff. But KJ Hill, I could very well see him he slips right into that starting slot receiver spot, and all the attention goes to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and And then there you have it. He's like, where'd they get this guy from?
Right.
So I don't know.
I don't know how he doesn't go earlier with what Heartline's production has done in the NFL.
It's just like, I don't know. If you not only is he the leading receptions guy, he's going up against the number 3 pick and the number 19 pick in the draft every day in practice. Mm-hmm. And then the year before, he's going up against Denzel Ward and still Sean Wade, who's going to be a first-round pick next year. I mean, it's just whatever. People are dumb. I tweeted the other day, or during the draft, which was the other day. I said, why? I said, what? Why don't the Bears just pick Ohio State players? So I think that they're doing something smart. I think at the beginning of this podcast, I said my theory, which was the best players in the NFL and the best players in the draft. This year was an exception because all of LSU got drafted, so this year was an exception. But I always said the best players played at Ohio State or beat Ohio State. Okay? And this year that was some Clemson guys, obviously. But the best guys played at Ohio State or beat Ohio State. And LSU probably may have beaten Ohio State in the championship, and then there would have been all those guys. But I just think everyone who got drafted probably where they should have been. KJ Hill should have been in the first 4 rounds, I think. When you see all the receivers that got taken, and maybe the Packers could have taken a wide receiver this year and taken KJ Hill. God, KJ Hill would be so good with Aaron Rodgers. He'd be unbelievable. Yeah, but then I can't root for him, so it's okay.
Yeah.
How about the fucking Packers taking Jordan Love? That is just, that's so exciting.
That was rich.
It is very clear that you can interpret the Packers draft in one of 2 ways. Obviously, me being a Bears fan, I don't like the Packers. They're doing what they did when they had Brett Favre. They had Brett Favre. They drafted Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre groomed Aaron Rodgers. There were retirement rumors. They needed someone just in case, and he groomed him, and then Aaron Rodgers turned into one of the best quarterbacks ever. That could be number 1. Or number 2, when you look at it like they drafted a quarterback and not a wide receiver to help Aaron Rodgers, then it's like, maybe there's a little trouble in paradise there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there probably is no trouble in paradise until Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, there's nothing in my job description that says I have to develop these young quarterbacks or whatever with a mustache or whatever, like he just came out of quarantine.
You think Tyrod Taylor, who's right now the Chargers quarterback, is just sick of playing 3 games and then the draft pick starting for him? Because that's going to happen with Herbert again.
Maybe not, though, because they're not in full rebuilding mode. Like, they're good. They were so close. You know how many games
2 years ago they were good. Last year they were pretty bad.
No, but they were losing every game by 1 touchdown, dude. They were so – I followed them very closely because I had Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen on my fantasy team. Not to mention I won my fantasy championship. But speaking of which, I'm looking at I'm really, really bored, and sometimes when you get bored, you just scroll Amazon. I'm into the Funko Pop game now, and I was looking at what Funko Pops I should buy. I stumbled across a Keenan Allen one. That's what made me think about my fantasy team. So then I looked for Christian McCaffrey one, and they have one. And I'm like, oh man, Christian McCaffrey Funko Pop.
You should have the person who came in last in your league last year buy you that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let me pull up my shopping cart of who I have right now.
Wait, while you do that, I thought of a good question to ask you.
Sure.
Actually, I thought of a good question for you to ask me. Ask me which rookie I think will have the biggest immediate impact on the offensive side.
What rookie do you think you have?
Fantasy-wise.
Who? Your question to you. Who?
So I think J.K. Dobbins will sneakily be amazing. I think he will get a lot of third down and long distance work. Mark Ingram's going to be the goal line guy because he's just a bowling ball, but he also can break down and be hurt. I think he probably played through some injuries this year. If you see this year, I think you'll see a game or 2 where Mark Ingram could play if it was the Super Bowl, but just be like, I'm taking this game off, and J.K. Dobbins will just feast on whoever they play.
Yeah, it's crazy how short of a lifespan running backs have, But besides Adrian Peterson. But yeah, I could see Dobbins being great. They just they ran for 5,000 yards or whatever this year. So why not have another threat back there? I mean, they instead of having RG3 in the backfield, now they have 2 running backs back there, and J.K. Dobbins can catch the ball. I mean, just
no, not in the Clemson game. We don't talk about that.
He could in theory catch the ball.
He could maybe catch a ball.
Yeah. So I could see him doing well. I'm thinking of other rookies I don't know, CeeDee Lamb is just incredible, and there's always wide receivers that do well fantasy. Like I don't want to keep talking about my team like it's dumb. I don't care about my team anymore. Obviously,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whatever the Helaire his name is.
Yeah.
He's gonna be
Prince of Helaire.
Unbelievable on the Chiefs.
Yeah, he'll do.
He's
great.
gonna have like 800 yards passing or 800 yards rushing, 800 yards receiving, and like 15 total touchdowns. He's gonna be amazing.
Yeah,
Mahomes is just gonna. And if you're not watching, I'm making a quick throwing motion.
Yeah, that's what Mahomes is gonna do. But I don't know. I think every year there's like at least one really good rookie wide receiver. And last year, like I just happened to have them all on my team, like Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, like all these guys, and Austin Brown, right? That's his name on the Titans. There was like 4 or 5 really, really good wide receivers, So I could see, any of the really CeeDee Lamb or any of the Alabama guys being really, really good. Like Henry Ruggs, like that dude's a freak, and obviously Gruden is drafting him to use him, so he could do great.
A.J. Brown, is that what you meant to say?
A.J. Brown. Well, it's Austin Brown Jr., I think. So They call him A.J. Brown.
Oh, I didn't know that. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, like the attic. I'm in my basement of my house because it's below the main floor.
Yeah,
so
I get
if that bar has a lower level and they
get it.
Basement, that's probably why. Anyway, back to my Funko Pops. Right now in my cart, I have a Spider-Man, my favorite Marvel character. I have Justin Timberlake with NSYNC, which is just a hilarious. He's got like the ramen noodle hair. I've got Kevin Malone from The Office with his chili bucket because I'm rewatching The Office right now, and he's one of my, if not my favorite characters. And then I already have a Michael Jordan Bulls one. So now I have a Michael Jordan UNC warm-ups, it's so cool with the old warm-up jacket and stuff, and he's holding the ball under his thing. And then I have a Barack Obama bobblehead where he's wearing a basketball uniform, spinning a red, white, and blue ball on his finger, and his jersey number is 44.
That's so cool. I have a KJ Hill, Malik Harrison, Jeff Okudah, Joe Burrow all in my cart.
Yeah, I don't know. They got Funko Pops ready to go?
Yeah. The Malik Harrison one I heard has just been flying off the shelves. Anything else before we get to our interview with Liam McCullough? Coca McCullough.
I don't think so. I think the main takeaway from the draft is if you want to go to the NFL, then you should go to Ohio State, it seems like,
Or go to Michigan and get drafted a little later.
Right. Yeah. If you want to make some money in the NFL, go to Ohio State. Then you'll get picked in the top 5. If you want to be a great defensive end, come to Ohio State. You'll get picked in the top 3. If you want to be a cornerback, you'll get picked in the top 5. If you want to be a quarterback, you might get picked number 1 if you transfer, but you might also get picked number 16 if you stay. So, like Justin Fields will be a top 10 pick next year, right?
Yeah, and I think we got to give credit where credit's due. LSU, you can go there too and have a pretty successful life if you go to LSU.
Yeah, I mean, well,
if you want to be drafted to the Browns, go to LSU.
If you win the national championship, you're starting, and you're eligible to go to the NFL draft, you're probably going to get drafted.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
it's safe to say for about any school.
All right, Liam McCullough, Coca McCullough.
Yeah. Now we welcome on Liam McCullough, who I used to cheat off him in accounting. Not literally, but he would help me with my homework.
All right. We'll do a real introduction when we get him on. All right, let's get to it.
That's not a fair introduction. He's more than that.
All right, we now welcome on to the Drive the Lane podcast via Zoom. Former Ohio State long snapper, now a member of the Las Vegas Raiders, Liam McCullough. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be on.
And we are definitely excited to have you. This is NFL player number 4 or 5 for us. I'm going to start you off with a tough trivia question right off the bat. You ready?
Okay.
So you were an undrafted free agent.
Okay.
How many long snappers who had long snapper as their position listed have ever been drafted?
I can tell you right now there's been one each year since 2015. So that'd be at least 6. There's at least 6 now. I'm going to guess 9.
Very close. The answer is 7.
7. I was about to say, I know there's at least 6.
You were very close. And that's cool that you knew that there have been one every year since 2015. Impressive stuff.
Liam, I remember when we first started hanging out, like freshman, sophomore year, whenever that was, and we would eat at Sloopy's after we studied at the library. We were talking about, obviously I had no desires to play professionally or definitely not get drafted, but obviously you had those the opposite of me. And I remember you telling me, there's the past couple of years, there's been a guy drafted. And I was like, who would have thought,
Yeah.
And then from then on, our friendship has blossomed into now you're a guest on the podcast,
Love it. It's been a long time coming.
So talk to me about the draft prep this year. Obviously a different year without pro day and obviously just being a crazy world in general. What were the ins and outs of every day for you?
Yeah, so my schedule didn't really change too much once the quarantine hit. I started out lifting at Grandview Pro Fitness here in Columbus, and I was doing all my running at the Woody with the Ohio State coaches, and then I started out once a week driving out to Indianapolis to snap with former NFL Indianapolis Colts long snappers Justin Snow and Matt Overton. And so once this quarantine hit, we kind of had to change our schedule up based off of some of the new rules and regulations in Indiana with the snapping. And I couldn't run at the Woody anymore. But my lifting schedule didn't really change much. I hopped around from home gyms and home gym to home gym, got some one-on-one training done while gyms were closed to the public. So my lifting really didn't change at all. If anything, it was better because I got to spend, more time with less distractions. Running was a little bit tough, finding outdoor fields and finding nice days to be on outdoor fields. But I also would do a little bit of running while I was in Indianapolis training.
Yeah, well, running's tough regardless. So it seems like it probably just intensified. So that's good to hear. In terms of like meetings with teams and stuff, was it a little bizarre to do it like this?
Yeah, it was. It was really weird to do it, to not have a pro day. That was really disappointing. That's something you prepare for and you hope for, for a long time. But once pro days got canceled and private workouts got canceled, it was weird to not be able to talk with coaches face to face. There was a lot of FaceTime, a lot of phone calls, a lot of texting, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise though, because I was able to, film my own workouts, my own running workouts, snapping workouts, and lifting. And I got to post it on YouTube and then send the link out to all these coaches. So anytime a coach would call me or FaceTime me or whatever, and ask, what I've been doing, I could tell them, my schedule hasn't changed much. I've still been doing this, working to get bigger, stronger, faster, better at snapping. If you'd like to see, I have a playlist that's made up in lieu of Pro Day that I can shoot you the link to right now. And all of them that I told that said, absolutely send it over to me. So that was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. I mean, that's the perfect idea. It seems like.
So I got a 2-part question. Question part 1, I'm going to need that footage sent to me. Can you please send that over?
Absolutely.
And then question number 2, what was your first interaction with the Raiders like, who then ultimately you signed with?
So it was interesting. The Raiders were actually the very first team that reached out to me. And they were probably the most interactive, if not one of the top 2 most interactive teams that I had encountered this spring. So my very first interaction with them, I actually got a call from their special teams assistant, whose name is Byron Storer. And he gave me a call, and we talked on the phone for about an hour and a half. And it seemed a lot like a job interview. He asked me a lot of the same questions that you guys have asked already, but also, talked about my strengths, my weaknesses, what I could bring to the program, to the franchise, excuse me. He asked a lot about, my goals on the field and off the field. Asked me, what I knew about the Raiders and about Las Vegas. If moving to a city like Vegas was something I was interested in potentially.
Well, what'd you say to that?
I said absolutely. I mean, shoot, if there was an NFL team in Alaska, I'd go there if they were willing to give me a job. So that was kind of my first interaction with them, and I heard from them, between 1 and 3 times a week, leading up to the draft, and then once the draft hit, it was 1 to 2 times an hour. So they really were the team that made the biggest push, I would say.
Did they tell you up front, like, we are not planning on drafting you, we're planning on signing you the second the draft ends? Or were they like, if there's a 7th or 6th round pick and we don't have any guys on our big boards, you're our guy?
So that was a conversation that I had with Byron, as well as with Coach Rich Bisaccia, who's the special teams coordinator. And without boring people and getting into too much detail, we had talked about the potential of drafting, and Coach Bisaccia actually said, if we were to take you in the 5th round, what could you bring to the table? What are we getting? But going into this, the Raiders had a very small number of draft picks this year. And the idea was always signing as a free agent. Drafting was something that we talked about and discussed, but the pathway that we spoke of was signing as a free agent.
If I want to backtrack just a little, because I feel like we'd be missing out if we didn't ask you this question. Did you get asked any just bizarre questions during these Zoom FaceTime calls?
Not really off the top of my head. A lot of teams are really professional. Everyone that wants to call, they ask very specific questions. You'll get coaches, scouts, GMs, doctors even that call you that want to know. That I had a doctor from a separate team call me and interview me about my medical history, and go through every single part of my body and go down the list and say, have you ever had any sort of sprain, tear, break, anything with this part? No. Okay. Well, have you ever had this injury? No. Have you ever had this injury? No. For about a good 20, 25 minutes. So everything is very succinct. Everything is very, very directed. But I don't think I got nothing that stuck out to me where I was like, good Lord, why?
Yeah, not like how many bouncy balls can fit in a school bus.
No market sizing questions. A little different than my Goldman Sachs interviews and stuff like that. But
right, I'm sure they hit you with some odd questions in those. But
absolutely,
that's good. I was kind of hoping you got a weird one, but it makes sense. Like if it was face to face, like I picture like Mike Vrabel, obviously Ohio State guy, and he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
I picture him going, all right, we've asked him the 5 questions we needed. Now there's time. We still have 10 minutes. Might as well ask him who his crush in high school was.
Yeah. I will say though, I spent a lot of time talking with Braden Combs, with the new special teams coordinator of the Detroit Lions. So he and I had a lot of conversations about his dad, who, as you know, was my special teams coordinator and recruited me out of high school. So we had a couple laughs and kind of reminisced about our similar experiences with him. But
yeah, you would have been the 9th player from Ohio State to join the Lions. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting you mentioned the Lions. My friend Jeffrey actually went 3rd overall to the Lions, so I wanted to point that out.
I've met him once or twice.
So, before we – because I got a bunch of questions about your teammates that are also now joining you in the NFL. But I got a playbook question. How different are teams' playbooks for you when it comes to long snapping? Or is it just pretty plug and play in terms of what your role would be within a playbook?
So I haven't seen the Raiders playbook yet. That's something that is coming in the near future, obviously with now rookie minicamp being virtual and everything. But in terms of just scheming professional style punts versus college punts, most schools in college have the snapper snap the ball and then release straight down the field. In the NFL, that's not the case. In the NFL, the long snapper has to be part of the protection, as you can only release two people down the field right off the snap. So the snapper's involved in protection, which very, very few schools implement that or have their snapper block. So that's the biggest difference going from college to the pros. And that's something that every single team does in the pros. And from the film I've watched and from people I've talked to and just, knowing, being a long snapper, the general punt scheme in the pros is pretty standard.
Because correct me if I'm wrong. I remember you saying this. You can't be touched in college, right?
So there's rules protecting the long snapper in terms of they can't hit you while your head's down.
Okay.
Now there's similar rules in the NFL where they can't line someone directly. They can't line up directly over the top of you. But in this case, you're snapping and bringing your head up, and then immediately you're going to have a guy in your face.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is there anyone that you're worried about that you're like, God, thank God I'm not in that division. I do not want that guy running towards me?
No, and I'll tell you why. Back in starting in fall camp, this whole dream I had of going and playing in the NFL kind of started to become a reality, with scouts showing up to practice. And, you just hear about people and teams that are interested in you just from staffers that talk and just things that you hear. And so when I started to realize, look, this is something that I'm going to get a shot to do potentially, I went to Chase Young during camp on like the second day. And I said, Chase, here's what I want you to do. I said, I'm going to set up a drill. I want you to rush me as hard as you can. Give me all the hand checks, everything, anything that you could do. Just stay within this lane. And I want you to try to beat me in any way possible. Just 3 or 4 reps after practice every day. And so that's something that Chase and I worked on during fall camp. And we actually got a couple reps during the season too. But really during fall camp, after practice, he'd stick around for 3 or 4 minutes and we'd get a few reps of that. So I feel very good, in terms of I feel very confident in my ability to block a rusher.
So it's safe to say that you created the animal that is Chase Young.
Basically. No. I wish.
He gets on his draft interview and goes, you know what, I got to thank a lot of people, but first I got to start with my long snapper, Liam.
Yeah, he created this drill.
Every day after practice, man. Oh, jeez.
So I want you to rank these quarterbacks for me, okay?
Okay.
In order of who is the best.
That's what ranking.
All right. Derek Carr.
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
And my alma mater's Drew Lock.
Just in the order you listed them. Got to go with Raider Nation, obviously, first.
That's your first test.
Super Bowl champion, probably a decent quarterback. And then we'll go with Drew Lock. But only because you're tied to him. And
then I think Herbert will probably be the starter down there with the Chargers, most likely. She'll see him twice a year.
Poor Tyshawn Taylor, man. Every place he goes and they're like, we're going to give you a chance. And then
Tyrod, not Tyshawn.
Tyshawn Taylor's point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks. My bad. Tyrod Taylor, quarterback. Poor guy gets a chance, and then they draft someone every year. Right? Zoldan, you said that, didn't you?
Yeah, I said that.
Look at this basketball guy trying to talk football.
Yeah. Let the football guys talk. Come on.
Hold on. I've said 1,000,000 times that I am the furthest thing from a diehard football fan. I know my stuff. I know my Ohio State Buckeyes. I know a little bit about the NFL, but I'm a basketball guy. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not.
Hey, that's okay.
Liam, I got
journalism.
I got a tip for you.
Okay.
So freshman year of high school, which was 9 years ago now, I was the starting B team right guard on the football team. B team right guard starting on the B team. And our quarterback wasn't very good and our line was not very good. And I think I had like 5 offensive fumble recoveries from just our quarterback fumbling and me diving on it.
Yeah.
And goes for the football, some would say.
And in one game, we played a team that the kicker could not kick off. He only knew how to onside or squib it. and I had 5 onside kick recoveries because they kept just coming right to me. So I think you should probably –
You're just patting yourself on the back right now. What's the
You
advice?
should probably the advice is that you should probably start working on your hands because there may be a lot of opportunities for you to be diving and grabbing the ball. You're used to snapping the ball. You're used to snapping the ball, but I just want to let you know that at the next level, there will be opportunities where you may need to grab a fumble here and there. You need to be ready for that.
You know, I really appreciate that. I'll definitely start working that into my routine starting tomorrow.
You'll just call up Chase and be like, "Yo, dude, I got another cool drill for us."
Another great drill. It's going to help both of us.
So, great. You go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, let's bring it back to college. Okay, we've talked about all the guys being drafted. When you were getting recruited, we know the answer to this, but was it Ohio State or bust? We know you're a Columbus kid. Was that was always the dream?
I wouldn't say it was Ohio State or bust. It was always going to be Ohio State when Ohio State comes calling. Growing up the same thing I tell everyone, growing up as a kid in Central Ohio in Columbus, you grow up watching the Buckeyes. Every little boy wants to play for the Buckeyes one day. So that was always a dream of mine. Ohio State wasn't the first team that came calling. So I tell people, and I told Coach Meyer this is how I actually got my offer to Ohio State. I was getting ready to commit to Michigan State from whom I had an offer. And I was getting ready to call Coach D'Antonio. And after the 2013 Big Ten Championship where Michigan State beat Ohio State. And so I called Coach Combs, who was the special teams coordinator at OSU, and I said, look, this is what I'm thinking. I just wanted to give you a heads up and let you know. And at that point, I only had a preferred walk-on offer to Ohio State. So Coach Combs said, before you do anything, I want you to come in and sit down with Coach Meyer and I, and we'll talk. So I said, okay, fine, whatever. He's, okay. And so I went in, and I don't remember how – it was a couple days or a week or two later. Went in, and Coach Meyer ended up offering me a scholarship right there. And he told me he said, you're really going to commit there? And I said, yeah, I think I am. And he said, look, I'm not going to lose a local player to any school in that state up north. And so he offered me a scholarship, and I committed.
Hey, heck of a recruiter. If you only knew that all he had to do was say the magic words.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell you right now that we've already got 2 clips that are going to do some numbers on social media. The Urban Meyer scholarship story and the Chase Young come run into me for the next couple hours story.
Hey, it's a funny story, but in all honesty, that I figured, shoot it. Chase is going to go 1 or 2 overall. This is before, Joe had his, Heisman season. So at this point, everyone was saying Chase is going to go number 1 overall. And I said, shoot, if I can block the number 1 overall draft pick 1-on-1, I could probably block, a pass rusher, in a punt scheme with 2 guards helping me out or a guard helping me out on either side. So I said, if you want to be the best, you got to go against the best. So
I'm starting to think, just the wheels are turning in my head. I'm starting to think that I should have called Coach Mata and said, look, Coach, I'm going to commit to Michigan State if all you're offering me is preferred walk-on spot.
I love it.
To commit to there. And then I could have had a scholarship from day one, but clearly we could have been talking earlier than this. Man.
Liam, when you were around Joe, when he was in the program, Joe Burrow, for those who are not familiar, were you like, this is a Heisman caliber quarterback, this is a top draft pick caliber quarterback, or were you as, and I guess surprised is not the right word, but were you as pleasantly surprised as everyone else?
I think a lot of us were pleasantly surprised. We knew Joe was a great quarterback, but he never really got, his chance to shine at Ohio State. Not because of his own doing or, anybody else, but, when you have a quarterback room that, in 2015 when I got onto campus, you had J.T. Barrett, Cardale Jones, Joe Burrow, and Braxton Miller. I mean, what the heck are we going to do? But you're going to have 4 quarterbacks on the field every snap. But, with Dwayne coming in, and Dwayne absolutely killed it. I love Dwayne. He's a great guy. Joe he didn't get his shot really. He didn't get the reps in games that maybe he should have. Not that it was a bad thing, because obviously we've seen how successful Dwayne was and is. And, I don't think anybody ever doubted that he would get to this point. But we knew how good Joe was. But in a room where the talent is that stacked, it's hard kind of to shine, especially at a position where there's only one quarterback on the field at a time.
Yeah, unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles, who will have two quarterbacks on the field.
So before we, and I've already said this, I have questions about your teammates there now in the NFL. Absolutely. But do you have any untold stories involving yourself and any of these guys who are moving on to the next level? We'd be breaking this news when we release it.
Not anything that's super exciting. I think people would be surprised to hear that Chase and I were actually pretty tight. I consider him a great friend. We did a lot of studying together. We spent time together outside of the facility and off the field. I think people would be surprised to hear that, but I think that just kind of goes to show the culture of Ohio State is that, and it goes to show how great of a person Chase is, that it doesn't matter if you're projected to go number 1 or number 2 overall, or if you're the long snapper, it doesn't matter. Chase is a great guy. He works hard, and he loves his team and his teammates.
So, I mean, maybe to prove that to people, you could just shoot him a text right now and be like, "Yo, join the Zoom."
Hey, I'm doing a podcast with Joey Lane.
Hey, remember those drills I helped you with? Now it's my turn for a face. No, wait. I have a question about your teammates. Zoldan cares about the guys in the NFL. I care about the special teams guys.
Absolutely.
Will you talk us through what a typical practice was like when there's only so many punts and kicks you guys can do in a practice? There's a lot of offensive, defensive scheming that you guys are not involved in at all. Obviously, what happened on a typical practice for you guys?
Yeah, so a typical day for us, we come into the facility. Kicking meeting would start around 2:30. So guys would come in after class, get some lunch, and start to get suited up for meetings. So after our kicking meeting, when everyone would break out into offense, defense meetings, we would break off into our little specialist meeting. We'd watch any film from the last week, go over kind of this week's game plan if we had one already, and then we would go into the locker or into the training room, get stretched out, get taped, and we'd start getting ready for practice. We'd be out on the field before. We're always the first people out on the field. We'd do our stretching because, especially when it would be, during spring practice, if it was cold outside where everyone was going to be practicing inside, you can't be kicking and punting all over the field when, the whole team's on one field. But we would always be the first unit outside. We'd start warming up. Before practice, we'd have something called specialist period right before our dynamic warm-up, where we would go over whatever the day was. Let's say it was a Tuesday. Tuesday's a punt day at Ohio State, so we would have punt during our specialist period. So snappers would snap to the punters. Punters would punt to the returners, who would bring the balls back, and then everybody was working on punt. Everyone who's involved in special teams was working on punt. So the line would go the line on punt team would go work with a certain coach. Punters and snappers would always work with Coach Meyer. Returners would be with Coach Alford or Coach Hartline. And so then, you have your dynamic warm-up. Then period 1 is always special teams, whether it's punt or field goal. So punt day, you got punt period, 5 minutes, rapid fire. Everyone's flying around, controlled chaos. And then a lot of times that was it. Sometimes we'd have a punt block period later in practice. So we would have our second team or third team guys go do that. A lot of times we'd kick to the returners while that period was going on as well. But the rest of practice, really, we just did our own work. We helped each other out, working with any corrections that we had from last weekend's game, any new types of scheme things with changing our block spot or having the punter slide or offset or anything like that. We'd work on that during the rest of practice, but really it was just working to get better at what we do.
And then what else? And then what else would you do? There had to be you had to fill the time somehow. Were you guys hyping other dudes up? Were you asking coaches questions? Were you all hanging out, just kicking field goals? I mean,
yeah. So we would do things like we would have a little bit of fun, but we always tried to be constructive with it. So we would do things like we'd have field goal competitions. So the guys that wouldn't get reps during the games, especially on days like Sunday when we would have, because we'd practice on Sundays after the games. So kickers that didn't get reps during the game, we'd have a field goal competition. So we'd do things like guys would play horse or pig, kicking field goals from different spots on the field. Or we'd do a pooch punt competition, which, we would have the snappers would each snap would get a punter or a kicker, and you snap the ball, run down the field, and then try to down it before it goes in the end zone. So things where you could still work on your craft but have a little bit of fun with it too. And then every now and then if we ran out of stuff to do, we'd play the crossbar game, trying to throw the ball at the crossbar and stuff like that. But
there you go. I feel like indirectly you'd become a really good punter and a really good kicker just hanging out with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Like goofing around, like now you could probably kick a 45-yard field goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough to believe that you could do that, but I'm sure if you, added Chase Young to this, he'd be able to agree that you could kick a 45-yard field goal.
I will say there were times, after practice or during camp where, you'd get a guy like Chase or like Rashad Berry who'd come over and they'd want to kick a field goal or they'd want to punt a ball or something like that,
Did you guys have emergency kickers or punters?
Outside of the specialist unit, no, because our specialist unit was so deep, especially last year. We did have emergency holders though. So Drew was always our holder, and then Zach Hoover. Brad Robinson took some reps at holding, just in case. Guys like CJ Saunders, a lot of the wide receivers, took reps at some point holding, just in case, so that would have happened.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe. Actually, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I just always. I mean, you see it in the NFL. The other couple of years ago, Dallas, their kicker pulled his hamstring or whatever, so they had a linebacker who was kicking off, and he was getting touchbacks. I just thought that was the craziest thing ever. So I figured you never know. Ohio State, if anyone had emergency kickers, Ohio State would have emergency kickers.
Yeah, no.
Who's the best non-long snapper on the team?
Oh, geez. I would have told you Billy Price a couple of years ago because Billy Price was our emergency long snapper. I would have to say Tough Borland. Because he actually took reps during practice in 2017. 2017, it was just me. I was the only guy, so we needed a backup, and it was Tough Borland. And also, surprisingly, Devon Hamilton is a good long snapper. We
were talking about him last episode. Andrew Dockich, obviously.
Yeah.
Dockich, when he first came to Ohio State, literally the first game that we went to, where our seats are.
Yeah.
And Doc goes, "Do you see 53?" I'm like, "Yeah, what about it?" He's like, "He is the biggest dude I have ever seen in my life." So from that day on, this was 3.5 years ago, he's like, "That's my favorite player in Ohio State history." And he stuck to it. He was there for 3 more years, and he loves Devon Hamilton to this day. He texts me, he's like, "You see he got drafted?"
Devon is one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen, and also one of the quietest and nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Who's the biggest goofball on the team?
It's hard. We had so many.
Yeah, list them off.
Outside of the specialist unit, I would say guys like Rashad comes to mind, Chase comes to mind. Really everybody had a little bit of goofiness in it. Rico, Damon Arnette, was another
teammate.
Guy. Yeah, another teammate, but a guy that likes to have a lot of fun. Really everybody to a certain extent. A lot of funny guys. A lot of guys like to dance around and have fun and stuff.
So because you said definitely during the draft you were like, all right, I'm going to be a Raider. When they took Damon Arnette 19th, were you excited? Were you like, damn, I got to go back to being with Damon? Or what was were you like, that's my teammate?
No, I love Rico. I say Rico. That's his nickname. I love Damon. He's a great guy. He and I actually had a lot of conversations during the off season last year, going into the 2019 season, about him, coming back for his last year, getting his degree, and kind of the steps that he needed to take to show teams that he was a guy of great character, as well as a hard worker. And so he and I had a lot of talks about that, about about faith and about, what he's doing and how he's on the right track. And you can see now it's paying off. So I was really excited when he, it's always nice to have Buckeyes, at the next level. But to have someone from my class that I came into Ohio State with and spent 5 years with, and a guy who I consider a friend, that was awesome.
You guys can room together. That'll be cool.
There you go.
And he'll
Bellagio.
Yeah, he can pick up the tab. His signing bonus is a little bit bigger than mine. So.
You can get a timeshare at like the Bellagio or something cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I wonder what they're. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, They're not going to stay. They're not going to let you stay on the Strip, obviously. But I feel like that could be advantageous for some people.
I would highly doubt it. But you got to remember too, a lot of guys that are, on the team on any team. You get guys that are in their, mid-30s, late 30s, early 40s that have families.
They need a house.
Wives and kids, and so they got houses. They got, but.
Have you talked to Gruden yet?
I haven't. I haven't talked with Coach Gruden yet. I've spent a lot of time. Well, I spent all of my time in terms of talking with coaches, spending time with the special teams coaches, with Coach Bisaccia and Coach Storer.
How much coaching?
Don't do the knock if you're with me thing when you talk to him for the first time. Sorry, don't do the knock if you're with me thing. That's played out probably. I would recommend against that.
I appreciate that.
I was just gonna say, how much coaching do long snappers get from the head coach versus their coordinators?
It depends. At Ohio State's a special place. Coach Meyer was involved in every aspect of every special teams. And that was one of the first things that he told me when I committed was he said, you know who your position coach is? And I said, it's Coach Combs, the special teams coordinator, right? And he goes, no. He goes, it's me. He goes, I'm the long snapping coach. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, punt is mine. He goes, you report to me. And I was like, holy cow. But at the next level, I would assume, obviously I don't have experience at the next level yet. I would assume it falls more on the special teams coordinator and the special teams assistant, especially in talking with Coach Bisaccia. And that was one of the reasons that I picked, the Las Vegas Raiders was first of all, Coach Bisaccia is a legend in the special teams community as a coordinator. But also just listening to him talk about the importance of special teams, but also the importance of the long snapper position, talking to him about some of the drills that he and his staff use to develop long snappers, and talking about how the long snapper plays a role and how that role fits into what we would call at Ohio State the plan to win. It reminded me a lot of the culture that Coach Meyer, Coach Day, Coach Combs, and Coach Barnes, established and uphold. So that was awesome.
You mentioned the plan to win. I got to give a funny story. So okay. Zoldan, you know that I took the coaching football class at Ohio State, right? I think I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Liam, when I would come to class at 7:15 in the morning, Liam and Sean they would always give me like food and drink from the Woody and stuff. And whenever Coach Meyer taught that class, and he taught that class, he was there maybe 4 times. And every time he gave us the same lecture. I mean, it's not a lecture; it's a speech. Because it's not a lecture. And every time it was about the plan to win. So I know the plan to win.
Hey.
And he would relate it to business. It was so funny. I'd be like, Coach, I have this we all have this in our notes already, but keep going, please. We love it.
Hey, and the last part of the plan to win the kicking game.
Exactly.
Win the kicking game.
Yeah, and Uncle, who was the real teacher of the class, he would say, all right, guys, how does this relate to business? And you'd go down, and it all makes sense. The best offense is a good defense, whatever, right? That's not word for word what it is, but that's the kind of stuff on there. And then he says, win the kicking game. And we all look at each other like, we don't know how that works for real life. And then he just says whatever every time it's something different. And we're like, yep, you're right.
So, Liam, one of the last questions I have. So you played with all these guys that were drafted. Of all the guys that were drafted, and I know the easy answer is your friend Chase. So besides Chase Young, who do you think makes the biggest immediate impact for their team?
I would say a couple different guys. I would say Jeff Okudah. I think a lot of people are familiar with the situation in Detroit with them bringing in Jeff Okudah and replacing Darius Slay. I think Jeff is going to make a huge splash in Detroit. I think everyone from Buckeye Nation and from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center knows how good of a player Jeff is and how he can really literally cut the field in half for a quarterback. I really honestly think Damon Arnette is going to make a huge impact in Las Vegas. I think people are going to be surprised to see, one, how physical he is, but two, how smart he is and how well he knows the game of football. And I really think he's going to fit into the Raiders defense perfectly. He's a big guy for a quarterback. He's physical. He's smart. And he goes balls to the wall in absolutely everything that he does. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he has an immediate impact on and off the field in Las Vegas.
And then last but not least, Davon Hamilton, obviously, because he's the best player ever.
Because he'll literally make a physical impact because of how large he is.
He will make the biggest impact. Oh, man. All right, Liam, I think we're going to wrap this up. My last question for you is we like to ask all our guests this. Do you have any questions for us?
When can I be on next? No. Off the top of my head.
Chase.
With Chase. I don't know if I have any questions for you. I think it'd be when are you going to be in Columbus next so we can hang out?
Yeah, soon, mid-May hopefully if everything goes well. So
awesome. Well, as of right now, rookie mini camp is virtual and everything, so we'll go to Sloopy's and then we'll go to Wing Night at Quaker Steak up there, Polaris. So.
Perfect. Yes, perfect.
Absolutely. And Andrew, you're coming too.
I'm coming. I think you guys play the Browns this year. I'm a Browns fan. If it's in Cleveland, which I
believe it is,
I will be there. So maybe we'll do a little post-game meetup. Jersey swap. I'll give you the Drive the Lane shirt. You give me the – if you haven't already swapped with Denzel Ward, you can jersey swap with me.
I have a feeling that maybe Denzel Ward and Damon Arnette might swap, but Liam, you should get on that early. We'll
do a little three-way swap.
Do you have a number yet?
No, not yet. Okay. But we'll do a three-way swap. They'll swap jerseys and I'll swap with myself. So I'll end up with mine. But
you'll be like, hold on, let me go back and get my white jersey and change it for the. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
you're gonna end up with Damon's, and you're already gonna have like 10 of those from all the other games.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. All right, buddy. We appreciate.
Thank you, man.
Anything else?
I really appreciate you guys having me on, and like I said, would love to touch base again and be on the Drive the Lane podcast again. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Make a highlight play, and we'll tweet it, and then we'll have you on the next day.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, man.
Talk to you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. See you.
Bye.
All right, thank you for listening or maybe watching to this episode of the Drive the Lane podcast. We're hoping to have a Walk-On Chronicles Part 2 coming here soon. That's probably the next episode coming from us. Joey, any thoughts?
Liam's the man. That was a blast to do. I hope that you guys realize, like, the insight that he was giving us was really, really cool. Like, no one knows what special teamers do, and he was telling us what it does.
He doesn't even know.
Yeah, I mean, like, whether it was the pre-draft stuff or the actual practice stuff, like, if any of you knew that, then you're lying to yourself, So it was cool. He's an awesome guy. He'll be on again because he's the man, and I think that Chase Young story is so damn funny.
So cool. That's going to make its rounds around Twitter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we appreciate everyone listening. Continue to interact with us. We'll keep tweeting out, and by we, I mean Andrew. We'll keep tweeting out all the time. Hopefully May is the turn of all this in terms of maybe not the virus, but in terms of getting our lives semi-back. I know that golf, it will be legal in May, so I'll be starting to do some sport-related stuff. So I hope that everyone back in Ohio is taking advantage of the golf that they have that we don't have here. And yeah, we will talk to you guys shortly.
Buckle up. Drive the lane.
Go Buckeyes.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row. We got Letterman Live. We've got the practice report. We got rapid reaction. Hey, and you know we got Buckeye Q with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Letterman Row.